Yeah, all right, when the music starts.
Hello and welcome into another edition of the FanTC Football Pod. Long time no see, boys. Coming at you on Wednesday afternoon, August 2nd, after a recording session last night. How are our Wednesdays, boys? Any stories to tell after the 20-hour hiatus here?
I was gonna say it's good to see that you guys made it through the past 20 hours. It's always nice to see you guys again. So, nope, I had to work in the office today, so nothing too exciting. If you, I guess this is gonna be coming out Friday. So if you're listening to this one and you have not checked out, we had the running backs on Wednesday and news and notes on Thursday. We'll also have some notes in this one from stuff that we just, I guess, it's really not even that big of a note section, but just a couple of things that came through over the course of today. But yeah, Eric, anything happened to you down in Arkansas? Any crazy Arkansas story? You were supposed to work till 8 and you got off at 4:30, so I'm gonna assume you had a
Yeah,
pretty good day.
well, I was up till 3 a.m. last night programming because I couldn't go to sleep after our
Oh
show. So
shit!
that's when I did most of my work.
After we wrapped up at 12:35 a.m.
Yeah, I sat in the bed for 3 hours, typing away, smashing on my keyboard.
Fun stuff.
I don't know if we ended up mentioning it off the top, but we are doing the wide receiver disagreement show today after the running backs last night. Like Cody said, I believe that one dropped today. And the NFL news and notes section update. Did we get that one out today, Codes, or is that one coming out tomorrow?
It's gonna be Thursday morning is when that one will
Thursday
be out.
morning.
So this one's gonna
Okay.
be out Friday that we're recording now. So if you're listening to this one, check out the ones from the previous 2 days, both on YouTube or your podcast platform. Make sure you're subscribed.
So we will update the news that happened today in the NFL. The rest of the news and notes we covered from the last about week and a half on a separate podcast, like Cody said, that will drop on Thursday. So that should still be pretty up to date. Nothing really happened today, just a few updates on injuries for the most part. But before we jump into the football section of the podcast, who wants to start out with their hot take?
I'll start out with mine. I feel actually pretty good about this one. I feel like it's a little bit maybe spicier than the couple duds I threw up yesterday. But I guess one of them wasn't a dud. I just needed to be a little bit spicier with it. I think it was on the right track. The other one was kind of a dud. But I think Adidas is the superior popular shoe brand over Nike, Under Armour, any of the other bigger shoe brand names out there. And I was reminded of that this weekend down at the Branson outlets. Checked out the Nike store, looked around, really couldn't find anything that caught my eye. Went to that Adidas store, took about 2 seconds. I was like, damn, these things are more comfortable. They look better. Just an Adidas kind of guy, at least for the shoes, I guess. I mean, I'm wearing a Nike hoodie, so don't get me wrong. They got some great products too. But as for the shoes alone, I think I go. I'm actually going to preface that the tennis shoes, like the just everyday walk around tennis shoe, because Nike does include Jordans, which are better than majority of shoes on their own. But Adidas over Nike in the tennis shoe department.
Yeah, I'm not really a brands guy, to be honest with you. I kind of just wear what I like, so I'm not gonna disagree with you. I would wear Adidas's. I don't have brand loyalty for most things, especially shoes myself. So I may not be the best one to comment on it. Eric, do you have any hot takes on it? Cody's hot take?
I've had 3 of the same pairs of Nikes that are like my everyday tennis shoes, and I don't know, I just kind of like them. They're just normal black ones, but I feel like I break them in real quickly, and so I've had 3 of those in a row. They've all lasted me like a year and a half. So I don't know. I don't know the last time I actually had an Adidas shoe though. I think it was probably I had like skateboarding Adidas's when I was in high school probably, and then maybe in college. I don't know.
Try it out, Eric. Put a little
Yeah, changed my
extra
life.
flavor in your life. Yeah, switch up that shoe every once in a while. All right,
Eric?
which one of you two want to go? Yep.
I'll take it away. My hot take is that the greatest board game on the face of the earth is Monopoly, and there's not even really a second place. What's the matter, Nick?
Oh
How do you
my
feel?
god, That's just the least surprising hot take I've ever seen in my life, knowing what I know about you. So that's yeah. I mean, I don't disagree. Again, I'm not a huge board game guy. I liked them a lot more when I was younger. I'm trying to think if there's a really underrated one. Stratego is really underrated. Love that
I
one.
do like Stratego
I
too
think
and
that
Risk.
might be
Monopoly is my
my
game.
favorite. But yeah, Monopoly's classic and it's pretty fun. You can play it with more than you can get 6 people in there. I think that's a nice benefit of it. But Cody, how are you? You're I feel like you've had some bad luck when we've had our occasional Monopoly games with the boys on Xbox. But what do you think?
Yeah, bad luck, or just people don't want to make trades that are fair whenever it involves me. I'm just supposed to be the Nick Mineo of the group. I know he's probably not watching, but when
Oh
he's
man,
not there, I'm supposed to just fill in and act like I don't have a
Still in
fucking
that role.
brain and let Eric just bend me over. And when I don't, I just get berated for a good 15 seconds after I deny the trade. So I do enjoy Monopoly quite a bit, so I think I'm there with you. I don't know if it's the best. I feel like if I played a lot more board games, then I'd probably find some others I like other better. But Monopoly's up there for sure.
I actually still do play like quite a lot of board games. My brother really likes them, so
Big card game guy. I play a lot of different card
same.
games. I've realized I do not play as many board games.
Next
yeah, I would
episode, I
very
might
much
have
agree
a
with
card
that.
game hot take for you.
My hot take of the
Solitaire.
evening is that couch napping is better than bed napping. I think this has a lot to do with a nap being kind of you want to go to sleep but not get into I guess your REM cycle if I'm being technical, but I think a bed is almost is too good of a nap because when I get up I don't feel rested. I don't feel like I just feel more tired because I want to go to actual sleep at that point. A couch kind of provides me with a nice 60 to 90 minute refuge and I can kind of gain some energy from that situation, but other way around it doesn't really work for me.
I feel you. We have an awesome couch in our apartment back in Chicago, and there have been some pretty solid afternoons where I just go splat right on it.
Yeah,
So
Nick,
satisfying
I
too.
I think I got to throw that take in the freezer, man. I think couch naps are by far the more superior nap than bed napping. And if I could get my rim cycle sleeping on a couch, I may consider it depending on the couch that it is. I love taking naps on a couch, so I am right there with you. Cannot combat that one very much.
Well, I will try to get back in my bag and get a little more spicy next time. I didn't know I
Yeah,
was talking
turn up
with
the heat
two,
next time.
yeah, with two seasoned couch napping veterans.
All three of us were
I
pretty mellow here. I think we all
Yeah, I was
agreed
gonna
with each
say. I
other for
feel
the
like
most
we're
part.
like we're at fours or fives across the board here. We really all agreed with each other.
Yeah.
That's not the fun I was hoping for necessarily. But do we have any other comments on the hot takes, or do you want to move into the news, guys?
Let's do it.
Have you heard the
Alrighty.
news?
Time for Nick's news and notes from around the NFL.
Still getting used to the drops over here, guys. But anyway, a few updates from the news that we gave you yesterday. Cooper Cup, his injury seems to be pretty mild compared to what the possibilities were here. Should be back in a couple weeks. I'm sure Sean McVay will be extra cautious with him. It's not like he was going to play in the preseason anyway, but I think you can confidently draft him wherever you were drafting him before this. I'm not too concerned. Do either of you have a different view of this, or are we all right here?
As long as he's healthy for the start of the season, he's one of my top 3 or 4 wide receivers I want. So he's not changing in my opinion.
Yeah, good news for Cooper Cup. Best ball drafters or early drafters, looks like he's going to be okay. I had a funny moment out of Patriots camp here. Cody's boy, Ramondre Stevenson, has been sitting out of practices pretty often in an apparent attempt to save his legs. When asked, Stevenson said, "Honestly, you've got to ask Bill Belichick why I'm not practicing." Really throwing the hoodie under the bus, not what I would recommend necessarily from a fourth round running back that again is always just a replaceable position. I think like at the end of the day, this is just kind of a funny quote, but interesting situation here, I guess, that Stevenson and his coach maybe not seeing eye to eye on his practice habits.
Yeah, I think if there's one coach in the NFL that just like grabs your attention that a player said his name in any kind of a negative way in an interview, like Bill Belichick's just like, wouldn't want to be Ramondre Stevenson tomorrow at practice. Like, you want to be on the field, buddy? You're not getting on the
Gonna
field
be on the
today.
field, motherfucker.
Let's roll. But yeah, it probably won't be more than just a funny quote, but like you said, just because it's Bill Belichick, it just has that added little spice factor into it.
He's gonna be covering punts in the preseason.
I was gonna
That
say,
yeah, right.
He's gonna play 95% of the snaps week 1 of the preseason now, just out of spite. But Calvin Ridley, he has a toe issue. This one's a new update. I didn't see this as a big problem though. He was still limited in practice, so the fact that he's out there at all means this is probably pretty minor. And then Alvin Kamara. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Cody.
Sorry, it's even less minor than that. All he had to do was change his shoes, and he was back out on the practice field in full capacity.
Right.
He was just limited for the portion of practice that he did not have the correct shoes on for some reason.
You had to get some Adidas cleats there.
Yeah,
if he did, that explains why he's looking so fast in these videos online. So it all makes sense now.
Last bit of news that I'm not sure is news at all. I feel like this was already the expectation, but report came out. Alvin Kamara expected to be suspended by the NFL, so if there was any hope that he was going to get out of this without a suspension, that seems to be pretty much gone, but I think this is basically what we all expected, so no change from my end at all here. Anything else to update here, guys, or do we want to jump into it?
I think we're ready for it. Ready to get into the wide receivers? Last arguments episode. Let's get into it.
Let's do it. Love the hard stop. All right. So if you guys, again, if this is your first one, me and Cody have ranked all of the position groups. We have chosen 5 players here at the wide receiver position group that we have some disagreement on. Obviously, one of us will be a little higher, one of us will be a little lower. We will give our arguments for each side on the same player. Eric will choose which argument he believes to be better as the fantasy mediator / judge here. Again, 5 players, so there will be a winner here one way or another. Pretty straightforward. We have done 5 of these so far, or excuse me, I guess this is our 4th one. We've done 3 so far. This is our 4th one. Everybody should know what the deal is at this point. Any questions, boys? Are we ready to jump into it?
Do you have your kicker rankings ready to roll for tomorrow's episode?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
There we go. Let's do it.
Basically just says Justin Tucker, and then it's just a blank list after that. So
there we go.
That's going to be a really fun episode.
You want me to introduce the first guy since I am in the affirmative of the argument? Beautiful. Well, I want to start first by saying, Eric, thanks for joining tonight. You look awfully good in that Arkansas hotel. So let's jump into these arguments here.
Checking out tomorrow.
More
go back home.
More cheese from the fucking peanut gallery over here.
There we go. Okay, first guy we have up on the board, DK Metcalf. I will say his ADP is 15. I have him at 15. Nick has him at 21. So I probably have him more towards a mid-tier wide receiver 2. Nick's more towards the back-end wide receiver 2. So not too far off. And all of the earlier guys we actually tended to agree on. I think our biggest difference for really 1 through like 12 or 13 was only like 1 or 2 spots. So this is like our first big difference in the rankings. For me, really, it's just a cutoff of tiers. Right at DK Metcalf is basically the start of what I consider my tier 4 of wide receivers. So I'm going to lump him in there with Calvin Ridley, Keenan Allen, Debo, Jerry Jeudy, Amari Cooper, I think is the other name on that list. So those kind of guys I all see very similarly. I think that they all have either really high talent or really high potential, but just maybe a couple question marks. And I think DK's is really just about JSN being added to this team and what he's going to take away from DK. And I think that that's fair because one thing we pointed out last year is the reason why DK and Tyler Lockett were just so good and consistent for fantasy football was they only had 2 true offensive targets in that passing game. So even with a less stellar quarterback in Geno Smith, you were still able to get plenty of production. And again, Geno Smith also was better than we thought. But even if he wasn't, it still would have been fine because there was only 2. So going into this year, really with DK for me, I I don't have a lot of the stats aren't going to really lean in my favor if I'm being completely honest, because all we're going to talk about is stats that could potentially be going away to JSN. For me, it's just betting on the player. When I look at these other guys, DK has tended to be healthier than the majority of these guys. He's almost always out on the field, just a freak of nature athlete, and I think he's one of those guys that if you get the ball in his hands, he could just make magical stuff happen. So again, I'm sure Aaron, or not Aaron, I'm sure Nick has plenty of stats as to why DK Metcalf, his numbers are going to go down this year. I'm pretty interested to hear it, but when I just look at the guy DK Metcalf, it's just hard for me to move him down in rankings, just knowing what he has been and what I think he still can continue to do.
Yeah, I think this is I'm going to preface this. This is the one guy off the top that I have the hardest time arguing against just as a player. I think the biggest thing for me is the end zone targets. They've been elite the past couple of years. Last year, he led the NFL by a wide margin, only scored 6 touchdowns, actually. But if that is to continue and he sees some regression in the touchdown category, he's going to have a great year. I think that's really the only way that DK Metcalf really pays off on his draft cost, though. Let's look at kind of an overview of him as a player, and you might see a little bit why I'm sort of concerned about him this year. He had an elite 2020 season. He really broke out. That was his second year in the league. He was wide receiver 8 in points per game, had 10.1 yards per target. Really efficient, really good. Didn't need a ton of targets to get there. It looked like he was kind of springboarding himself into the top 5 or 10 discussion for the next couple of years. I think he was only 23 that year. But since then, he has had seasons of 7.5 and 7.4 yards per target, very pedestrian, probably even below average as far as the NFL is concerned. His ADOT decreased in 3 straight years as well. So dating back to that 2020 season, he was at 13.7. The last two, 12.7, 11.2. Suggests a possible decline in athleticism or just maybe a different role in the offense. But again, this is a guy you kind of rely on big plays for. Haven't been targeting him as much downfield for whatever reason the past couple of years, and he has been just frankly outperformed by his teammate Tyler Lockett on a points per game basis. In 2021, Tyler Lockett, wide receiver 14 in points per game at 12.8 points. DK Metcalf, wide receiver 19 at 12.2. Last year, DK Metcalf, wide receiver 27 in points per game at 10.7. Tyler Lockett, wide receiver 15 at 12.2. So pretty substantial margin last year, and a decent sized margin the year before. He's just been a better player on the field the last 2 NFL seasons. And then JSN, like Cody mentioned, he's kind of the wild card here. Obviously, he had a disappointing last year in college, had some injuries, only played 3 games, but I think we need to remember how good this dude was in his 2021 season. With Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave, 2 top 15 picks in the draft, 2 guys that had incredible rookie years in the NFL on the same team. Jackson Smith and Jigba, 95 catches, 1,606 yards, 9 touchdowns. For context, Garrett Wilson, 70 catches, 1,058 yards, 12 scores. Chris Olave, 65 catches, 936 yards, 13 scores. So almost a 600-yard advantage on both Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave. A year before his draft-eligible season in the same offense, really outproducing 2, what we would say are 2 top 12 wide receivers in consensus ADP right now in the NFL. So really, really impressive stuff there. If JSN comes in and just is the best player on the team in the wide receiver room, at least, I wouldn't be that shocked. I mean, he's shown the ability to do that, and that would be the one area where DK just he has had horribly inefficient years the last 2 years. They kind of go away from him because this elite prospect just emerges. But yeah, I'm just seeing some concerning signs in his efficiency, and the addition of JSN does not bode well for his ceiling, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would like to note that he has been the clear number 1 on the team, even though Tyler Lockett has outproduced him from a fantasy perspective. The other team is game planning around DK Metcalf, not around Tyler Lockett. So he does have a little bit of tougher matchups he has to go against. Adding a third wide receiver, I don't think necessarily hurts him as much as that, because it just gives another guy on the field, especially if he's an elite talent, gives them another guy they have to watch out for. And yeah, I mean, again, I don't really think this guy's coming in to take DK Metcalf's spot. I don't think he's really coming in to take Tyler Lockett's spot. I think there's a there's room for a third option on this team that may overall take away from these guys' ceilings. But I think spreading the field out a little bit more, giving DK maybe less one-on-one coverage with top corners, maybe less double teams could also help out his value a little bit in that respect. But yeah, I mean, again, like the guys that I am just kind of including them around, like Amari Cooper, Keenan Allen, D Hop, Debo Samuel. Calvin Ridley's a little tough for me. I've been rising a little bit on Calvin Ridley with the camp hype, but I still just take DK Metcalf every time over those guys when it's my turn to pick. So I guess I don't really, like I said, don't have the stats to back it up because you can't really like just throw stats out there whenever there's a whole new guy coming into the equation that could be a big impact. It's just kind of a feeling with DK. I think he's still that guy, and I think he can show it this year with a third option.
Yeah, I don't think there's a room for a third option here on the Seattle offense. They threw a lot more than they normally do last year. I don't expect it to go up. I think it's, if anything, going to stay where it was, which is slightly above league average. Again, that's not typical for a Pete Carroll team in general, but even if it stays there, 553 overall targets to spread throughout the offense. 255 went to Metcalf and Lockett, so just under half. That's a really high total for your top two wide receivers, but I don't know if there is room for a third guy to get in there and all three of them have successful years. In my opinion, if you want a piece of the Seattle offense and you don't trust JSN yet, whether it's because he's a rookie or because you're concerned about his final year in college, I would just wait and take Tyler Lockett a couple rounds after DK Metcalf. He's been better than him for 2 straight years. There's been no injury concerns for DK Metcalf, so for whatever reason, Lockett's just been a better NFL player by pretty wide margin the last 34 games, which is a sizable sample size in my opinion.
Any questions, Eric?
No. I'm going to side with Nick on this one. I think there are a couple too many mouths to feed on this offense.
I hated that one from the second I saw it. I almost texted you and said we should do someone different because I immediately was just like, there's no good argument other than I just trust DK Metcalf to continue being a beast of a football player. And I 100% agree. There's a lot of concern about drafting him where he's at when you factor in JSN coming in there and Tyler Lockett being as productive as he is. So
I think it's
I tried it for the bit, but yeah, I would lean your way. I don't know if I'd really move him that far down my rankings besides behind Calvin Ridley, but I'm not as excited to draft him as you should be when you're taking a guy as early as him.
I think the end zone targets is the only good argument you can probably have. I don't have the numbers in here in front of me, but I believe it was something like 24 end zone targets for DK Metcalf. The next closest in the NFL was like 17 or so. It was ridiculous how far and away ahead he was. And he wasn't very efficient with them, so you could also argue
that he didn't even score a lot of touchdowns.
They'll go a different way this year because he didn't catch a lot of them, but at the same time, it's like if you're dropping back as a quarterback, you see a giant guy over there in the corner, you're going to throw the ball at him.
A literal giant.
That makes some sense to me. So I could see that argument. Maybe he just scores 13 touchdowns and it doesn't even matter. But yeah, I'm concerned with his efficiency the past couple of years. It's been surprisingly bad after I dug into it.
All right. Well, let's talk about Mr. Consistency. Nick's guy this year and Eric's guy. I already know this is an uphill battle. I feel like I'm going down 2-0 right away. But I do not give a fuck. Let's talk about my least favorite guy in the NFL, DJ Moore. Nick, you take the floor.
Not to spoil it, but you're going to have to back up a Green Bay Packer after this. So you got a real uphill battle coming here with a Chicago Bears fan as the judge. That is, of course, DJ Moore. I will admit this is probably my least statistical argument that I have. I will give some numbers, but again, there I have just kind of fudged some things. I don't have a huge statistical argument here for DJ Moore, taking a giant leap here. I have him at 17. ADP's 23. Cody has him at 27. So this is actually a pretty large disagreement in this area of the draft. ADP a little closer to Cody, but pretty much right in the middle of us. So wide receiver 17, where I would be taking him. He's going at the 4-5 turn right now. I mean, so basically I'd be comfortable taking him in the 4th. I mean, that's a decent investment, but it's not like, you're not taking you can take him after a guy like DK Metcalf, like we talked about. Let's see who else is going around. Drake London's ahead of him right now. D Hop, Jerry Jeudy. I would gladly take him over all those guys. Let's look at DJ Moore's career real quick. He has had a 25% target share over his career after his rookie season. He is at 8.1 yards per target in his career. Really solid numbers with very mediocre quarterback play. I think he had one season where Teddy Bridgewater kind of had a resurgent year. He had a pretty solid season as a quarterback that year, but other than that, he's been dealing with the Sam Darnolds, the Baker Mayfields. He's really been the bottom of the barrel as far as quarterback play is concerned, and still on a rate basis, he has been pretty solid. I think this is a really good wide receiver here. But at the end of the day, I think the argument comes down to Chicago throwing the ball more. They've had 22.2 pass attempts per game last season. If you look at every team that was lowest in the league at pass attempts in that particular year, the last 11 years, Chicago is still an outlier. I remember I said 22.2 pass attempts per game. The second lowest in the last 11 years was 2013 Seattle at 25.7, a full 3.5 pass attempts higher than what Chicago was at last year, which is just incredible. 27.07 is the average over all of those 11. So I think we can expect them to get to at least the average of the lowest, NFL team at pass attempts per game. And I think 30 attempts per game is pretty reasonable. That would still be probably bottom 5 to 10 in the NFL. But with them drafting a tackle at number 10 and trading a ton of assets to go get DJ Moore, it's signaling them wanting to throw the ball more. They have some better weapons now. I think 30 attempts per game is very reasonable. And if we give DJ Moore his career rates, 25% target share, 8.1 yards per target, like I said, that would give him 70 catches, 1,071 yards, 7 touchdowns. I gave him touchdowns based on Justin Fields' career touchdown rate. And that would get us to wide receiver 18 last year, which is right around where I have him. Any improvement in Justin Fields' game or bump in target share, I think 25% is pretty conservative, honestly. I'd expect him to be closer to 30 if I was projecting him out. We'll only push him further up the board. And again, this just has that smell of the A.J. Brown to the Eagles. Jalen Hurts takes a step. A.J. Brown takes a step. Stephon Diggs to the Bills. Josh Allen takes a step.
All for
Stephon Diggs takes a step. I mean, this is just what we've seen the past couple off seasons. This is the move that was made by a team in a similar situation for a quarterback that was struggling to throw the ball, but is throwing to who? Equinemius St. Brown, Darnell Mooney half a year because he gets injured. He had no targets, and I think you give him a really, really good wide receiver one, in my opinion, and he can take a leap. It's a bit of a risk, but I think he's going to get a ton of targets either way, and maybe he'll just be his inefficient DJ Moore self. You'll have a boomer bust wide receiver too. Maybe not what you expected, but not going to be a negative asset. And he has upside for a lot more.
Yeah, that would be awesome for Eric if he ends up being the next AJ Brown to Jalen Hurts or Justin Fields being Jalen Hurts. But I think we're nowhere in the same stratosphere as that in this situation.
Stephon Diggs was being drafted in this range the first year in Buffalo. I will say that, and he exploded. It was a very, very similar situation to the Diggs case, in my opinion. I think these guys profiled very similarly in their careers before they were traded.
Yeah, I don't think Justin Fields is anywhere near where Josh Allen was as a passer at that year of his career. Going into it,
Josh Allen was horrible as a passer before that year. He was awful. I mean, probably worse.
Not towards the end of the season. He started picking up towards the end of the season. They got Diggs, and then he took off right after that. But, I mean, basically, I'm not going to combat that argument because I don't really have anything for that. But if you listen to the podcast, you know how I feel about DJ Moore. He's a boom-bust wide receiver, too. That is his ceiling. That is what has proven to be his ceiling throughout his entire career. And we could talk about quarterbacks, but talking about Justin Fields like he's going to turn into one of the top 5 quarterback this year is, I would say, a little bit crazy just based on the fact that we didn't see anything besides running from him last year. Darnell Mooney was the highest scoring wide receiver they had last year, 58th in points per game. So even if he was hurt, even when he's out there, he was still now producing for a fantasy perspective. Coming off a year where he was 26th in points per game in 2021. So he actually declined with their new offense they have. For me, it's just simple. I know what the outcome is. The best that he's finished is wide receiver 18. I don't think Justin Fields is an elite passer of the football. He has not proven to be anything like that so far in his career. And we can point to outliers like Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen, but those are outliers. Like, we're not just expecting every quarterback to make that jump. We saw what happened when people expected Baker to make that jump, and people expected other young quarterbacks to make that kind of jump. Not everyone does it. Like, outliers like Hurts and Allen are outliers for a reason. Again, I know this is an uphill battle. I'm not trying to talk shit on Justin Fields. I think he's a good value where you can draft him in fantasy. I just would not want his pass catching options, including DJ Moore, anywhere near where he's going in drafts. I think every guy around him I would take over him.
I guess that's fair, but I mean, yeah, I would point to the quality of targets that he was throwing to as a huge reason for a lot of his poor rate metrics as a thrower. Literally, let's look at his leading target getters last year: Cole Kmet, Darnell Mooney. Again, he missed a good chunk of the season with that ankle injury towards the end. David Montgomery, Equinemius St. Brown, Dante Pettis, the ghost of Dante Pettis, was starting games for the Chicago Bears. Chase
he had that
Claypool,
one long touchdown, I remember.
at the end of the year. Byron Pringle, Velus Jones. I mean, come on. This guy has not had anyone to throw to in his career so far, other than Darnell Mooney, who actually I like a lot, but I think will be way better served as a quality number 2 than the number 1 wide receiver on an NFL team.
That's all for you to take. Snag up as much DJ Moore as you can. That's just going to be a nice boom bust wide receiver 3 for you.
Well, that's what
Eric, any questions?
Stephon Diggs. Then he finished top 5.
No, I'm good, I think. I think I am actually going to shock people here, and I'm going to side with Cody because I don't think that we're going to throw the ball that much more. I think our throws will go up, but I think we're probably still going to be under 30 throws a game this year. Just because, I mean, when Justin Fields took off, it's not because they opened up the passing game. It's because they were like, hey, just fucking run around everybody. And I don't necessarily think they're going to go away from that. I do like the boom bust he has, but I agree with Cody. There are a lot of really good receivers in that range that I would probably take over DJ Moore. Not Drake London, though.
That's fair enough. I will take DJ Moore gladly in the at the 4 or 5 turn, and like I said, I think it has a ton of upside, and his floor is not that low in my opinion.
Yeah, I got to say I was not expecting you to come out with Justin Fields is going to be the next Jalen Hurts argument in this one, so that caught me off guard.
It really did make me. He tried to butter my biscuit a little bit, but
I mean, I don't know what tells you that. I mean, again, I think Justin Fields is. Go back and look at his rate stats on his throwing before last year. Jalen Hurts, that is, not that much better than Justin Fields, if not worse. So, and in college, Justin Fields was a far superior passer of the football than Jalen Hurts. I think it's easy to see him taking a leap into year 3, just like Jalen Hurts did. I mean, it's the same situation.
I gotta vote with my brain, not my heart. Sadly. Might have been.
I don't think I'm going to call the 2023 Bears the same situation as the 2022 Eagles. So, but DJ Moore definitely helps them out a little bit. All right, are we good for number 3?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's get back up climbing this hill again. I got a Packer I got to present here for you, Eric. My guy. I mean, this is definitely my guy. I picked him up in almost every league at the end of last year. He was a reason that I kind of snuck into a couple of playoffs I probably didn't deserve to. This is Christian Watson, currently going as the wide receiver 24. I have him just above at the 22, Nick at the 28, so not a huge difference, but there's a big enough one there that I want to stake my claim for Christian Watson. So this is not a for sure fact. I didn't go through every player last year, but I am almost certain that he has the highest points per game, 10.3, with the lowest opportunities per game, 4.6, of any other fantasy viable option. Outside of maybe like a random running back or receiver who catches a long touchdown, the one chance they get or something like that. So he was banged up to start last season, missed a few games with injuries to start last season as well. Obviously took a little bit for him and Aaron Rodgers to get on the same page. I think that that's one step ahead this year. Now, obviously, it's going to be Jordan Love, so that's a question mark that I completely understand. As for me, I'm not going to look at it as an entirely big negative right now, where you're seeing a lot of other quarterbacks kind of just given a kind of a step up, and everyone just thinks Jordan Love is going to be completely incompetent. Like, here's the thing: if you have a quarterback in your building that long that's completely incompetent, and you're not going to probably just completely commit to them, which I guess they haven't, but I like they are. If he's any resemblance of good this year, they're going to commit to him. But my reason why I love Christian Watson, he has great game breaking ability. Obviously, with the limited amount of opportunities last year, he was putting a lot of fantasy points on the board. From week 10 and on, he was the overall wide receiver 8 for fantasy football. So that's obviously a big step going into this year once he finally got healthy. And then my final point, and I think this is probably the biggest point for me, is I am not at all trying to come across and say that he is going to sustain his level of production on his level of opportunities. I truly believe he's going to be the wide receiver 1 or the primary pass catching option for the Green Bay Packers. So I see a good amount of opportunity jump here, and then I just think he's a very talented wide receiver. I think it easily lands him into wide receiver 2 territory, and unlike DJ Moore, I do think Christian Watson has true ability to break out in his sophomore season.
Fair enough. I like Watson, the player. A lot of his rate stats were really good last year. Again, that's with Aaron Rodgers, a Hall of Fame quarterback, so hard to know if he's going to be able to replicate that with Jordan Love. On Jordan Love, by the way, I don't think that this signals any sort of belief from the Packers in his ability. The fact that they let his entire rookie contract run out without him playing says a lot more to me than him starting this year. Their options at quarterback were essentially play Jordan Love or go sign Derek Carr to a too expensive contract, or one of the other mid-level veteran quarterbacks that were available on the market. They had too late of a pick to go out and try to get one of the elite quarterbacks in this year's draft, and they are not a team that ever pays free agents, let alone paying a mid-level quarterback to replace a Hall of Fame quarterback. So I think they're kind of just stuck with Jordan Love. They kind of have to see what they have this year. He has not been impressive on film or in any place that he's played before. In college, I thought I was a bit of a reach when he was taken to begin with. And then on Christian Watson, huge reliance on touchdowns last year. Did have a very impressive run, like Cody said, from week 10 on. But 37.6% of his points came on touchdowns. For context, Davante Adams led the league with 14 touchdowns last year, and he had 29.4% of his points from touchdowns. So Christian Watson, really, really touchdown reliant last year. Again, 9 in, I believe, all of the week 10 and on games. I don't think he had any before them. Excuse me, I'm not positive, but touchdowns obviously played a huge part. The Packers offense also concerns me. The last 3 seasons in plays per game overall, they're 24th, 18th, and 20th. That is with a good quarterback on mostly successful teams. Last year, obviously they were a little bit more closer to 500, but the 2 years before that, they were 13-3. That's a team that has the ball that should be, higher end of plays per game in totality. Give them a bad quarterback, maybe knock down the win total a couple degrees. They could be bottom 3 in overall plays. So I think there's just going to be less opportunities across the board for this offense. And again, the Jordan Love factor is just a little scary for me. The floor for Christian Watson, we talked about the floor for DJ Moore. The floor for Christian Watson is unplayable in 3 or 4 weeks. I think you could easily envision a scenario where him and Romeo Doubs are kind of close in target share, and you're getting 4 or 5 targets a week. You're getting a lot of 1 or 2 catch games. I would rather take my shot on a guy like Mike Williams, who I think profiles very similarly, but plays on a much, much better team with a much better quarterback.
Yeah, I think our difference in opinion here is I don't think that there's going to be a him and Romeo Doubs are 50-50 in targets. I think he is going to be the wide receiver 1 like they drafted him to be. And I think that this is going to be a year that he, if Jordan Love is below average and holds him back, he's going to finish as a low-end wide receiver 2, high-end wide receiver 3. And if Jordan Love is any resemblance of an average quarterback, Christian Watson's going to have the chance to really break out this year. His talent is way higher than a lot of other guys in the same area. It's just your biggest question mark's Jordan Love, and I don't know. I got a hint that Christian Watson is like A.J. Brown going to the Eagles, and Jordan Love is going to take a big step this year. I'm just kidding.
I don't
I'm
see
just
where the
kidding.
logic is there.
Just kidding.
At
Chuckle
all.
is just a joke.
Just a joke. Yeah, no, I just think his floor is way lower than that. I mean, I could easily see him finishing outside the top 36 at wide receiver. I don't think he's guaranteed to be the number one by a wide margin. And again, Jordan Love could be a bottom 5 quarterback, and then in that case, you're not. I mean, there's a very good chance there's just no successful pass catchers on this team.
Where is his? You gave me his ranks. Where's his ADP? When is he going in drafts?
24, mid-5th. So right after DJ Moore. DJ Moore's 23, he's 24.
I'm going to side with Nick on this one. I don't trust Jordan Love yet, and I'm praying with all of my existence that he's ass. I hope he's the bottom 1 quarterback in the league, and I am going to let my heart do the talking here, because if he's a fucking Hall of Famer, I'm never going to watch a football game again.
Yeah, I don't think he got.
Unfortunately, Baker's going to be a starter, so he can only be bottom 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I'm hoping for worse than Baker,
Kyle
but, you know.
Trask is gaining steam,
Nah,
right? No, you better watch
I
that.
had to throw my Baker jab in there when I had the chance. So
Fair enough. DJ Moore would probably do the same. All right.
For sure.
Moving on to my last guy of the evening here. That is Marquise Brown of the Arizona Cardinals. All right, here. So this is obviously going to depend quite a bit on Kyler Murray's health. We don't have a ton of updates yet as to when he's going to come back. We're just hoping. It looks like a week 3, week 4 return is in the cards potentially, but I think this is going to be something we're just going to have to monitor. Right now, Marquise Brown's a mid-7th round pick, so you're not paying much. I think even if let's say you had a draft tomorrow and you got to take him in the mid-7th, he's not going to be a completely dead asset with Colt McCoy at the helm. He's an okay, serviceable backup quarterback. He'll get the ball to Marquise Brown enough that he can probably be a low-end wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 type, probably boom bust. I'm not going to have as much faith in him clearly, though. I'll just say that right off the jump. Basically, my argument for Marquise Brown is all based on the games that he played with Kyler Murray with no Hopkins, because they were truly, truly elite. I'm going to just give you the targets he had in those 6 games, starting with week 1 and moving on. 6, 11, 17, 11, 10, 9. He had 43 catches for 485 yards and 3 touchdowns. That is a full season pace of 122 receptions, 1,374 yards, and 8.5 TDs. Would have been wide receiver 6 ahead of CeeDee Lamb, Jalen Waddle, and Jamar Chase in points per game. He played 1 game with Kyler and Hopkins as well. He still got 8 targets in that game, only 6 catches for 46 yards, but that was his first game off of what I believe was a ankle injury. I can't remember, but he had a severe injury that kept him out for, I think it was 6 or 7 games in the middle of the year there. And then Kyler obviously tore his ACL the first game after that. But I just think the upside's huge here. And again, this is a player that's been pretty consistent in his career, even through some offenses that didn't throw the ball so much in Baltimore. I think in the 7th round, you're kind of drafting him around his floor. I think, wide receiver 30 is pretty easy to expect, even with half a season of Colt McCoy. And then there's upside for a lot more here if Kyler Murray comes out and, is targeting Brown to any degree close to where he was the first 6 games of last year. Their defense is going to be absolutely horrible. They're going to have to be coming back in games. I think the upside here is worth the play in the mid-7th round.
Yeah, this is similar to the DK argument. I don't necessarily love this one for my side of it. I do have some numbers I'll go through here that kind of back, I guess, somewhat avoiding Hollywood Brown. But, I mean, he's an absolute value, especially if Kyler can find a way to come back early in the season. I mean, he has proven he could be a wide receiver 1 both on the field and for your fantasy team. So, again, that's tough to argue against because I will happily take Hollywood Brown where he's going in drafts. I think I actually – do I have him right next to ADP? He's 30. Yeah, I have him right ahead, and then you have him a little bit higher. So yeah, like I take him every time right where he's at for sure. But here's my argument. For one, when he did have that 6-game sample size. I believe one of the games he had 10. He finished as like the wide receiver 25, and then another game where he had 11, he finished outside the top 30. So I just kind of went for the 3 games in the middle where he finished as a wide receiver 1. For those 3 games, I believe it was a 10, 11, and a 17 target game, so 12.6 targets per game. That if he could keep that pace up, that would lead the NFL by a whole 1.5 targets per game. So a little bit probably on the more unsustainable side, but he could still definitely stay on the higher end of that. So again, not saying he's going to come down to like 8 or 7 and just completely fall off. But if he comes back to, 9.5, 10, where a lot of, wide receiver 1, 2-ish players are, it would come down a little bit. And then when he did come back, he was still getting 7.8 targets per game, even with D-Hop and then, with Kyler, without Kyler. And, in the per game and obviously the lower level targets, but his best finish was wide receiver 25. On the other 4 games, he finished outside the top 42 at the position, and that really just highlights the quarterback concern for me if Kyler doesn't find a way to come back, because a little part of me kind of thinks that the Cardinals would be okay with Kyler missing the rest of the season or missing the season, them being in the Caleb Williams sweepstakes and then kind of resetting their franchise around a new young quarterback. But again, if Kyler can get it out there early, that's what you're paying him for. So that's kind of a tricky situation. But my concern is simply Kyler's ACL takes almost the full year that it takes for most people when they have an ACL injury. It takes him a little bit longer to get back to his prior level. And by that time, when you're getting Hollywood's full fantasy value, you're fighting for a playoff spot, or you may be just too late and you're already out of the playoffs. So my concern with Hollywood Brown is just that his upside is there. It's just if Kyler doesn't come back till later, or if not at all, he's probably not going to reach that in time for you to take full advantage this fantasy season.
Yeah, definitely. If Kyler's out, more than half the year, I think there's a decent chance that he's not even going to pay off on the ADP he's at right now in the mid-7th. But I think it's in Kyler's best interest to get out there as soon as he's healthy, whether the Cardinals want him to or not. If he's healthy, he's going to play. For sure. These guys are playing for contracts out there. They're not going to just sit him down if he's healthy. And again, Kyler Murray in specific, like you said, he could get replaced next season pretty easily if the Cardinals are the first or second, pick in the draft and they have a chance to take Drake May or Caleb Williams. And who knows what happens to Kyler's career after that. I mean, he'd probably get a starting job somewhere, but we've seen a ton of these guys lately, be it Sam Darnold, be it Baker Mayfield, be it, go down the list of guys that didn't work out with their original team. Not a lot of them have had success with, teams after that. So I think Kyler is really, has a lot of motivation to come back and play well this year when he gets healthy. And if he does, I don't even think he has to play too well. If he targets Hollywood Brown anywhere near even, you cut off 10 or 15% of his targets, he'll still be easily a wide receiver too.
Yeah. And on your point about Kyler and the Cardinals, he's also under contract. So any team that is then thus trading for Kyler Murray, I'm sure the Cardinals are going to want to get something for him, considering they just paid him, and he is a relatively high talent at that position. So, if he can play, I assume he will. Contract. But again, my final point here is just I'm not arguing that Hollywood Brown's going to be bad. I'm just arguing that I have him a little bit closer to where his ADP is currently. My concerns, I guess, loom a little bit higher for me on the Kyler Murray return, and that's what's giving me a little cold feet when it comes to Hollywood Brown.
I have him at 25, by the way. I don't know if I ever prefaced the fact that ADP's 34, you have him 33, I have him 25. So just wanted to throw that out there so we have a barometer.
Yep. Eric, any questions?
What week did Kyler tear his ACL last year?
I believe
10
it was
or 11
13,
sounds familiar. 13 maybe.
It was here.
He came back and played one game, and then it would be.
I'm pretty sure it was a clean ACL. There wasn't other ligaments damaged, which usually obviously has a slightly quicker recovery timeline than those that do. But it was December 12th, so pretty late in the year, week 14. But yeah, once he's healthy, I think he'll be out there. Quarterback, again, probably doesn't need the same level of, healthy. He doesn't need. You need the same level of recovery time as a wide receiver or running back, even though he is pretty mobile.
Yeah. Okie doke.
Let's do it.
I'm going to side with Cody on this one again. I do still think he has value, like Cody said. I think he might be a little
Cody
bit
agreed with
too
you.
high up. Huh?
I was gonna say
Cody
I hated
agreed
that
with me.
argument.
He literally just agreed with me, dude. He didn't even make an argument against fucking Marquise Brown. God damn.
My argument
I
was the
wouldn't reach
quarterback
that high
concern.
up for him. Like, I don't think I'd take him over. Maybe I would take him over Godwin. I don't think I'd take him over Mike Williams. Probably. Maybe in the same area as Tyler Lockett. I don't know. Hey, fuck you. I'm just going to vote for Cody again next time because you're upsetting me. How does that make you feel, Nick?
I just can't believe that. I literally, he just agreed with my argument. It was like, yeah, I can't really argue against that. And then you're like, yeah, Cody, I agree with you. That's fine.
I don't buy that Kyler's going to be there that long either.
That's fine. Hey, if you want to say that, then
that's the only
that's
premise of my
good
argument
point,
against
right.
him is the
If
Kyler
you believe
situation.
Kyler's going to be out longer than I do, then you know what? If you're right, then
When is his timeline? Like, do they have any idea?
There's no timeline yet. He's still possibly going to play week 1. They're saying they have not. I mean,
they have not even
it's
ruled that
just
out
up in
yet.
the air. They have not. They've not given us any info.
It's very tough. I did a lot of Googling to see if I could find any Arizona beat reporter or anything that had any kind of info so I could have a little bit more to back my argument. But it is nothing at all. So
yeah, you're playing the wild card of Kyler Murray's health right now. We'll know a lot more. I'm sure 2 weeks from now, this argument will be a lot easier to have, to be honest, because we'll have hopefully an update. Or at that point, a lack of an update would probably be an update in itself that things aren't going too well. But anyway, Cody, you want to get to your last guy?
Let's do it. Let's wrap this up here. Last guy, actually going, I think, a little bit ahead of Hollywood Brown, but just the way that we worked it out so we could go back and forth. Terry McLaurin, currently going ADP at 25, 52nd overall, early mid-fifth round pick. So we're right back in that Christian Watson, DJ Moore tier of player. I have him at 23. Nick has him at 34. So I would say considerably below his ADP. I kind of just want to go through just a couple stats here with Terry McLaurin. Again, it's another situation where some of these wide receivers where you could just make the quarterback argument. It's hard to really argue against that because we don't know what Sam Howell is going to look like. I think if Jacoby Brissett's the quarterback, I think I may like McLaurin a little bit more just based on what he did with Cooper last year. But let's just talk about the player and Terry McLaurin himself. And last year, he's coming off his best fantasy finish. He finished as the wide receiver 14. He was the wide receiver 22 in points per game. I'll point that out. But when I'm looking at my wide receiver 2 and wide receiver 3, I'm going to consider healthiness as a very positive note. If I don't have to worry about going in and adding a Nico Collins the week of to play my wide receiver 3 because Terry McLaurin, has a sneaky ankle injury. It was just the first one off the mind. Nico Collins shouldn't be disgraced like that. I know.
Yeah, come on. He's got a real quarterback this year. Sorry, I need to throw you off, but Nico Collins later.
No, I just wanted to make my point of healthiness come across there. So the only game that he did play with Sam Howell was Week 18. He finished as the wide receiver 11. It's Week 18. We all know that that's weird. So not going to really stand on that too much. My argument for Terry McLaurin is pretty simple. We've had a constant issue with who his quarterback's going to be now for 3 straight years. He's finished as a wide receiver 2 or better every single year of his career, besides his rookie year, which was wide receiver 28. So even in a year where he wasn't good, or considered that good, he was still able to produce for fantasy. He's actually coming off, like I said, the best year of his career, and he still kind of has those same question marks around him. And I also do think a little bit, we're not really specifically talking about him, but if Jahan Dotson had a little bit of touchdown luck last year, I'm not going to say that he's not an outstanding player because I do think he is pretty good. He's going to be a great wide receiver too for that team this year. But he got the ball a lot in the end zone when he was on the field. Kind of took a little bit from McLaurin towards down the stretch. I don't think that that's a 100% that Jahan's going to be their touchdown scorer. That's obviously, touchdowns can go either way any given week, any given year. So I just think wide receiver 14 last year, you're drafting him as wide receiver 25. So you're drafting him right outside being a wide receiver 2. He's already proven his floor as a wide receiver 2. If Sam Howell can be average, he's going to be better. If Jacoby Brissett comes in, I think he's at least a mid-level wide receiver 2 just based off of what Amari did. with Jacoby. I believe I may have this number wrong because I realized both my numbers are 8, but I believe Amari Cooper was the number 8 wide receiver through the first 10 or 12 weeks last year when Jacoby was
That sounds
the
about right.
quarterback. So, again, Sam Howell's my biggest question mark just because we have not seen him on the field enough to really trust that he's going to be an NFL caliber quarterback. But, you know, I know Taylor Heineke's a great story, but you can have your question marks with him and all the other Washington quarterbacks, and McLaurin just seems to be a constant throughout. So when I'm looking in this range, again, I think I'm going Christian Watson as my favorite guy in this category, but I think McLaurin would be right behind him when I'm looking at these rankings.
All right. This pains me, to be honest. I'm a big Scary Terry fan as a player. I think he seems like a really great dude. I've seen some stories come out about his, impact in the locker room and work with, just like charities in Washington and stuff. Seems like a very, very great human being and a really good wide receiver. I'd love to see him with a decent quarterback and see if he could maybe, turn in a wide receiver 12 or better season in that case. But like Cody said, he will be playing with Sam Howell this year, and if it's not Sam Howell, it's Jacoby Brissett. I know we like Jacoby Brissett, but he is what he is. He's a career backup. He played well with Cleveland last year, but I don't know if we can expect substantially better numbers than what McLaurin had with Heinicke last year, especially because Heinicke kind of zeroed in on Terry McLaurin for a large portion of the season and peppered him with targets. I'm not sure that's going to be the case. I'll get to that later, but in Terry McLaurin's career, like you said, he's been healthy the whole time, but I think that's also sort of masked a little bit of his game-to-game inefficiency. He was wide receiver 22 last year, like you said, in points per game, wide receiver 33 in 21, wide receiver 20 in 2020, and wide receiver 28 in 2019. So wide receiver 20 in points per game is the highest he has gotten so far in his career. He will be 28 on September 15th. I feel like we think of him as kind of a younger guy, but he is not. I think we've sort of seen his peak as a player. Maybe it's this year. I don't think he's going to take a step back in ability, but I don't think there's a leap coming here from a 28-year-old guy. He's kind of on the back end of what we consider his prime. Maybe right in the middle of it for a wide receiver, but again, I don't think there's a leap coming. That's kind of my point there. And then the other concern is Jahan Dotson, as Cody said. The touchdowns, I'll start with that. Maybe it was an outlier. Jahan caught 7 last year to Terry McLaurin's, 5 total in a lot fewer targets. That's probably a little fluky, but at the same time, Terry McLaurin's touchdown totals in his career, 7, 4, 5, 5. Not much of a touchdown scorer to this point, and Jahan Dotson steps right into the offense and scores 7 on a lot fewer targets than what Terry's been seeing the past few years. Maybe he's just a better red zone player for whatever reason. I'm not sure, of the X's and O's of it. But I think there is something to Terry McLaurin's lack of scores to this point in his career. And then from week 13 on, so Jahan Dotson, he struggled early on. He got hurt. And then when he came back, he played 50% of the snaps in the first 3 games back. That was weeks 10, 11, and 12. From week 13 on, Terry McLaurin, 34 targets. Jahan Dotson, 35 targets. He really turned it on. This was not a 1-2 situation. It was a 1A, 1B. And Dotson, again, was the preferred guy in the red zone. The game that you referenced where Terry McLaurin played with Sam Howell, he had 6 targets to Jahan's 4, but Jahan had 3 catches for 70 yards. McLaurin had 4 for 72, so both of them actually had some success in that game. Again, really small sample size, so I don't really want to take much from that, but I think Jahan Dotson has a higher ceiling because of his touchdown potential and much higher draft pedigree. Let's not forget, this was a first-round pick last year. He was the 6th wide receiver off the board, amazingly, but still a top 20 pick in the NFL. Terry McLaurin was a 3rd rounder. So, again, he's been a very, very good wide receiver to this point, but I don't think has the top-end talent that Jahan Dotson does. So I would prefer to just wait and take Dotson. I actually have him ranked a spot higher than Terry McLaurin. Gun to my head, Terry McLaurin's probably going to score more points this year than Dotson, but my point is that if you're taking the shot this late, I want the guy with the higher ceiling, and that's Dotson to me. So that's why I'm a little lower on McLaurin. I don't really see the ceiling here.
Yeah, I don't have too much of a rebuttal. Like I said, I didn't really have too big of an argument because it is just tough. Like, it's not like another receiver where they have continuity with their quarterback where you can just look back at the stats and really put a lot of faith into it. Again, even from a points per game standpoint, like I said, he has been a healthy wide receiver for your fantasy team. I think that that's something that's we don't consider too much when we're looking at it at this point of the season because we're always just looking at upside and what have you done for me lately combined with what can you do for me this year. But if Terry McLaurin's in your wide receiver 2 spot every single week, not only do I feel like you have the upside of him to be able to finish as a wide receiver 1, which he's proven throughout his career, but again, even if his floor is, mid wide receiver 2 in points per game, you're drafting him just barely above that. So you're not really losing a lot of value on that pick. I think it's a pretty safe pick. I think like if you want to get ballsy and go DJ Moore over him because you like the potential upside, I think that's a draft selection while you're building your team. But for me, when I'm just looking at the value there, I feel like there's close to no way outside of injury that Terry McLaurin doesn't find his way in this same area again. And I do think that there is a chance that he could have one of those outlier touchdown seasons and bump himself up into a higher caliber of wide receiver 2.
You said Terry McLaurin's floor is a mid wide receiver 2, even though the highest he's ever been on points per game is wide receiver 20. So I think his ceiling is a mid wide receiver 2, I think is what you meant when you said that.
I meant mid wide receiver 3. I was thinking mid wide receiver 3. Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's fair. I'd say that's.
I was thinking between 2 and 3. I was going 2.5, and then just I don't know why I said mid 2 because that would obviously be like 18. So yeah, so mid. His floor is a mid wide receiver 3, and then goes down to a ceiling of a wide receiver 2. But I think he does have a little bit more. And we'll see again with the quarterback play. I don't really have any argument on that. So yeah, we'll see if Sam can be good or Jacoby can be decent like he was last year. I feel like there's a little bit of a higher ceiling, but there's a reason why you're taking him at the wide receiver 2. I mean, I think if he's on the Chiefs with this talent, you're pretty stoked about him. But the quarterback's just something you can't overcome until we see it.
Yeah, I don't understand taking Terry McLaurin over DJ Moore at all. I think these are two very similar receivers. They've had quarterback struggles throughout their career. They've been really running the carousel. I'm not saying Justin Fields will be a better passer than Sam Howell this year, but I think there's a very good if one of those two is going to take a leap, it's going to be Fields, not Sam Howell. I mean, we've seen him play one NFL game so far, and DJ Moore's the unquestioned one, and I think you could argue that Jahan might be the one here. So I don't know. I could not see the argument to take McLaurin over Moore because I think they're very similar quality wide receivers as players, and I think Moore's in a vastly superior situation.
All right, I'm not gonna put all my eggs in the McLaurin basket, but I'll beer bet you Christian Watson versus DJ Moore and points per game, total points, finish, whatever you want to name it. I'll take Christian Watson. You got DJ Moore.
You name it out of those things, and I'll give it to you because I like free beer.
All right.
That's one of my monikers throughout life. I feel like I've been very successful with. Free beer is good, so I'm
Is it a hot take that I'd rather have a cold beer than a free beer? Is that a solid hot take potentially?
Yeah, that is. A free beer is the best beer. A cold beer is the second best beer.
Yeah, drink your warm
beer
piss
is
water.
much better than cold beer that you paid for, Cody. You fool.
You fucking lunatic.
Not even close. Not even close. All right, drum roll for good old Terry Mack. Let's hear it.
I am actually going to side with Nick in this one again. And going in, I thought I was going to side with Cody, but I think I see a lot more of Jahan Dotson's upside, and I didn't realize that he had kind of eaten into that wide receiver 1 role on that team. And I just don't think that they're going to be able to. What, you don't like that, Cody?
Wide receiver 1 role? I don't think any of his stats besides touchdown show wide receiver 1 role.
I meant on the Washington roster.
Yeah,
that's what I mean. He's
saying
he got more targets at the end of the year.
Yeah, I think there's a very good possibility.
A 1A, 1B, yeah. Going into the night, I was like, it's Terry McLaurin up here, and then it's Dotson down here. Now I think it's more like
this is good.
And
I think that's fair. I guess so. I guess so. This is where my question is where we're arguing is. So do you think McLaurin's ADP should be down at 34? Because you said Nick won the argument, so how far are you drafting Terry McLaurin down there? Because that's where I don't really understand where these arguments are going. Is there's a lot of guys in between 25 and 34 that I'm sure you're probably taking McLaurin over.
Would you rather take Marquise Brown or McLaurin?
As we
Without
sit
knowing
here
about
today.
Tyler, I would take Terry. Actually, maybe I am. I'm
Christian
gonna
Watson?
switch that. Actually, no, I wouldn't take Christian Watson over him.
Tyler Lockett.
Probably because I trust Geno more.
Mike Williams.
That's another tough one. I think I'd go McLaurin.
Okay.
Christian Kirk.
I think
I think I'm okay with this argument at this point. Then, like we're cutting like it's razor thin here. I was just genuinely curious if you just had Terry McLaurin as a borderline wide receiver 3, or if you were just on Nick's side of the argument for Jahan Dotson.
I don't think him finishing as wide receiver 24 would be you winning the argument though. I say the point that I made is that I think he will finish above where I have him ranked. I just don't see the upside here at all. And I think you are locking yourself into a guy that is going to be a low end wide receiver 2 at best, and maybe even a wide receiver 3 with a lot of inconsistencies where there are a lot of guys around him. Jahan Dotson, his teammate. Gabe Davis, Deontay, all these guys I think have higher upside than Terry McLaurin. They are guys that could be weekly starters that are giving you an advantage week to week, whereas McLaurin is kind of going to be what he is. He's going to have his duds. He's going to have his good weeks, but I don't see a ton of upside with Sam Howell as quarterback and Dotson potentially emerging here.
Fair enough. Eric, any final statements?
We ended up tying throughout the whole process there. It was, I believe, let's see, 10-10 overall. So Good job, guys. That was hard fought.
Good stuff for sure.
Eric just being the forever the Solomon of the situation here, just cutting the baby in half, not making anybody upset. If he would have given you the Terry McLaurin argument, I would have just left. I think I would have just walked out of the room. I would have been real upset.
Yeah, these are fun to do. I'm so happy they're over with. I cannot stand having to make arguments off of just completely
a lot of digging that goes into this.
It has been so time consuming just to build arguments that literally after week 1 I could look back on and be like, that was such a stupid fucking argument I had to make.
Yeah, because there was a couple times where I was building an argument where I had to I was like, I don't like this. Like I can't, like I don't believe what I'm talking about right now, and I had to just tear it down and like restart. And I was like, that was like 45 minutes down the drain. That's just like looking up this stat and then this stat and then this stat, and I'm like, oh wait, this whole argument's stupid, and I just have to restart. Yeah, it is very time consuming. They are really fun though.
Yes, they are a lot of fun. And it also kind of makes you, even if it's like not as fun when you have to like stand up and like stand on it, but like it does make you think. Like I look back at my DK Metcalf ranking, like I don't know, like I think I like Calvin Ridley a little bit more now. Been rising a little bit on Debo as well in that same category. So it's like it kind of makes you think about it, like, oh, why is Nick this far down? Let me look at some different stats too, and you're like, okay, that makes sense and stuff. So it was a fun exercise for sure, but it will be nice to get into just some positives. We could stay on a lot of positive things from here on out when we're talking about these players. We don't have to try and tear them down and fight for our argument.
Does somebody want to take a beer bet with me that Jordan Love's going to be a bottom 5 quarterback this year?
How do we rank that?
How do you quantify that? Yeah,
bottom 5 in points per game or QBR or anything. I just want him at the bottom of the league.
Of like
fantasy or NFL?
At least 10 games or something, or like because I mean bottom 5. I mean there's going to be like 45 quarterbacks that play. I mean you could quarterback 37 and not be bottom 5 technically. So
we do need a minimum games.
So let's just
12
say
games, like 3/4 of the season.
I would say 10 to 12, depending as long as he plays the full season. I would say if you played 10 games as a quarterback in the NFL, you were that season's starter. So.
I guess. I mean, I could see like Baker Mayfield playing the first 5 games, getting benched, and then playing the last 5 games or something if Trask just is horrible. And then maybe he's better at points per game than Love, but he didn't really have a better year. I don't know. Like you could have like a couple outlier games that just push him up. But again, I'm okay with you guys. This is your guys'.
I just want to bet on Jordan Love beat that. How we do that, I don't care.
Okay, I'm going to say minimum 10 games.
All right, here. You know what? I'll throw one out there for you. I'll go Justin Fields versus Jordan Love in passing yards per game.
Oh, I'll take Justin Fields 100 out of 100 times.
All right, I'll take Jordan Love.
That's a good one.
I think that's fair because I'm not betting against Justin Fields' legs, all three of them.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah, Cody, I was going to say either that or you just have to choose some other bottom feeder quarterback or Eric, you have to choose some bottom feeder quarterback you like more than Jordan Love, like like CJ Stroud or something like that. But
do you have R2 written down anywhere? Like, do you have it in a document or just on a note somewhere?
Yeah, he shared it with me earlier.
Yeah, the bets. I have them written down. I sent you
Perfect.
the doc yesterday, so there should be
Cool.
should be there. I made our DJ Moore one. I said Nick bets Cody, DJ Moore will outscore Christian Watson in points per game, half PPR. Does that sound all right?
Yes.
Okay. Cody bets Eric that Jordan Love will have more passing yards per game than Justin Fields. I like that one. That one's interesting.
He's
just
going to go
enjoy
for
buying
like
people
300
beer,
in the
so-
first week and tears
You guys
ACL
say
and
you like
I'm
you guys
Just
like free
tossing
beer.
out
When
beers left and
I
right.
pull up with this boiling hot beer, I hope you guys all enjoy it. There you go.
I'm a shotgun
Yeah.
when you pull up, right?
Eric, you opened that door for the boiling hot beer, man. That was all you. I'm gonna blame you. I'm fucking
You agreed with me.
warm Keystone Light. Yeah, I know. Oh, jeez.
All right. Well, all right. Let's wrap up this episode. If you made it this far in, like, comment, subscribe, share with friends, share with family, help the boys get out there. We are. It's gonna be pretty hot and heavy for the next few months. So if you are an early one on the bandwagon, share us with a couple of your buddies. We are working our butts off to get this content out to you, both long form, short form. Check out TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all the stuff. So it should be everywhere. Peace out. Any final statements, boys? Or we good?
I think we're good. Let's get out of
Gucci.
here.
I think we need a good saying to end every. I feel like every good podcast has a good saying at the end of it. Like people say something. I just can't.
Jordan
think.
Love sucks.
I'm cool with
Cut.
that one. DJ Moore's a fucking beast.
I'm gonna win all my beer bets, and I feel good about it.